So we have before us a panel of professors with some of the most esteemed leading schools in the country and across the globe. And I would like to now welcome on stage Mr. Sekhar Mukherjee, Director, NID, Andhra Pradesh. He's also an NID alumni. He led the animation department for over 2 decades. He's founded Chitrakatha, which is a biannual animation film festival that happens for students internationally, held in India every 2 years. Next, can I please get Mr. Milindo Taid, HOD, School of Design, Whistling Woods International. He's the former faculty of communication design at NID, Ahmedabad, and has also chaired the head of new media, NID. Calling up next is Bhavna. Bhavna Vyas Vipparthi is head of studies of digital media arts BFA program at Srishti, Manipal Institute of Art and Design. And she has her own studio, and she has been teaching in the last 5 years and chairing students across projects. Coming up next is Professor Binoj. He is the head of animation design department, MIT Institute of Design. He also has an experience of about 18 years with teaching. And last but not the least, we have Professor Davonne. Professor Davonne Dupart from Savannah College of Art and Design. She's also an award-making filmmaker and whose work has been, widely screened across various channels and film festivals. Thank you, everyone.
Guys, one quick announcement before we resume the panel discussion properly. The screenings are happening on a parallel venue upstairs. There are 2 screening rooms. The schedule is out. It has been shared with you also, so they will be happening parallelly. So just keep that in mind. You guys are free to attend whichever programming that you want. So that's starting as well. Over to Snigdha. The workshops will also happen at its chosen time in the upstairs room. So there's a workshop room upstairs, 2 screening venues upstairs.
Thank you. And with that, we'll get right into it. So, starting with you, Sekhar, the very pertinent question, animation, art or design? This has always been like an eternal debate, right? Where exactly does one situate the medium?
I didn't prepare my answer, so I'll try to. Yeah, I mean, I think it's everywhere. It's like, I think there is no question of separating with the definitions, because especially more we move in the journey, and especially I feel that how our mind is kind of keep on expanding in this whole crazy world of virtuality and reality. I mean, I was telling someone that we are recovering from this whole 2 years of another world we traveled. So, and this astronaut who was here, I was just thinking. So, it's, of course, I just simplified that animation is something I feel like design is an attitude, it's a way of life, it's a kind of an experience. It is no more, animation means funny drawings jumping around, and design means something very serious, serious object which is kind of is a product or something. I really don't know. So I can't answer because, as I told you, I didn't prepare. Maybe it will evolve during this panel. Like, yeah. It's a good question, but I failed.
Yeah, sure. I think I'll feel more easier if I'm walking around, but sure. Anybody else in the panel would like to take that on? Bhav. Okay. Yeah.
Hello. No, go ahead. May I go? Yeah. Okay, for me, I will say it's like a coin, head and tail. So it's good to call it art and design, because the more we get this kind of definition, or maybe the input which we are trying to align with animation, is good to give a support. So for me, it starts with art and all that, and you practice more, and then you understand the design aspects of it, and then you make it purposeful. Okay, you know that what purpose you want to do, to take this art into some meaningful way. And there's a lot of technology which is there, which makes seamless possibilities. So it's a versatile medium, I would say, but it's a art, design, and technology. So let's add technology also so that it get more support. So that's how I see it.
No, very pertinent point there. Thank you. Professor Davonne, would you like to say something?
I would agree with you in terms of what you were saying. A lot of what we teach in class is what is the intentionality behind what you're creating. It's not just entertainment for entertainment's sake or something fun. It's not just that. We're telling stories, we're making comments. It's actually, we're making a comment about life, and that interpretation of life, and everything's very specific, it's very designed, very intentional. So when I think of the word design, I think it's, what is the intention? What is the use? What's the purpose it's serving? And animation does serve a purpose. And I think it's about renewing our mind in terms of animation being more than just cartoons. It's definitely a very poetic way to touch upon very serious topics. So, and it's about pushing technology forward as well. So.
Absolutely. So taking a leaf from that, so we've seen like a wide progression of, in the field of application, in the application of animation across the industry. It started with, content, which is just films, shorts, series. Now it's evolved to games, apps, programs, metaverse now as we know about it, right? So how are you guys as educators who are setting out a program for youngsters kind of trying to keep in trend or rather at pace with the industry? How do you guys set about a pedagogy which is at pace with the industry? And again, Bhavna, would you like to take a stab at that?
I'm not sure that we should look at education as trying to keep pace with the industry in that sense. I'm sure we'll hear lots more speakers and we'll get to see, hear from studios and things like that. But I think if we start catering it to being a certain specific skill set to cater to a certain kind of sector, then we're really limiting what we teach. I think Sekhar brought up a really nice point about it being a way of life, and now we're talking about how animation is really versatile. If you already start putting students in buckets and kind of training them to think you're going to fit into this role, then we're really limiting them. I think teaching them to be confident in how they see the world and being adaptive, and then going out and creating new roles is, I think, what we should be trying to do.
Milindo?
Yeah, I think in terms of the curriculum serving, or curriculum in any design school serving the industry, that's a given, that's but obvious, but I would also argue that academia shows the way and leads the way, and not always following quote-unquote industry trends. I think academia necessarily has to also engage with areas that industry fears to tread in, and I think that's very vital. Other than that, I would say that, just getting curriculum components which are tailor-made to a specific job, I think that's so much limiting the potential and the scope for the medium itself. I regard animation as one of the freest media forms. And I think that liberty being curtailed by diktats of what to do and what not to, I think it's quite shameful then.
So when you guys are looking at designing the curriculum, what are the pertinent points that you are keeping in mind when you put out, and I mean, the idea was more that like the industry is sort of evolving, and this is where these students prepare to go take, they're going to eventually go and be part of the industry or create their own industry for that matter, as you guys said. They're pioneer their own mediums, which is what one hopes. But how do you kind of like, stay grounded while looking forward and try and bring some of that into the classroom, like your tips or tricks or, in terms of setting the curriculum that kind of gets to that? Yeah, for sure.
So I definitely agree that, we want to create students, or we want to train students to be forward-thinking problem solvers, and using animation to not necessarily be limited. It's because there are so many things possible. But I know at our university, it's very targeted to what do students need to do to have a career in the animation industry. You know, being Georgia, having a lot of productions made in that state, they're looking for students that are ready to work in the pipeline. So there's a lot of resources and efforts put towards what do we need right now? Where is the industry headed? So we're building these facilities like this XR stages and teaching students how to use these tools so that, you know, right as soon as they graduate, they're able to get that job. So we are teaching the specific skill sets, but also what are some of the other things that you guys can, that they can learn, where they're learning the production pipeline, the industry setup, but then they can be their own independent filmmakers as well. So they have that option, but it is very much targeted to getting that career and what are employers looking for right now in the current current students. So that's how we're setting up our curriculum at the moment.
Okay. So clearly, like we see, there's some level of shifts between the thinking. Now, which brings you to the next question. With access to global industries and global systems and universities across, is it really pertinent to compare education systems across the globe? Or, you know, how local should your education system be? Or are you looking at building global students?
Yeah, again, I'll have problem to answer very black and white directly because, you know,
we're here
it's-
for a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, and especially it's all overlaps and, you know, so what is global? That question also comes to, you know, like, question is even in India, if you see, even in Bombay, if you look at it, like, you know, what we are talking today, and even you go step out and you see suddenly you'll go back to 1970. So what is global? First question comes to, you know, like what we talk about. And today, I mean, we hear for quite some time saying that, especially you see that in lockdown time, that technology becomes so powerful. And what is technology also? What is the barest minimum technology? Like extension of eyes, hands, hearts, legs, you know, whatever. So perhaps we need to see that one. And then on the other hand, we're talking about sustainability. And globally, and now it is SDG, like they're talking about Sustainable Development Goal for 2030, we should achieve. Then they're talking about carbon trading, they're talking about. So point is, if you see in NID or whatever other schools we talk about in good schools, what is good school, good educations, certain fundamentals are very important, you know, looking at it. And since if YouTube is the university or you know, whatever, like, you know, other things, many, I mean, if I feel that, you know, like a lot of students are connected much faster than institutes, managements, they're connected with each other.
Right.
Yeah. But lockdown, we see that they found out their way. That, you know, a lot of online sessions started, it empowered a lot of things. The world somewhere become like a virtual Triassic world, like, you know, Panagea, virtual Panagea, where you see, people started working together, a lot of interesting, innovative way co-production happened. But somewhere I feel that global education or the education which can be universal education, perhaps the fundamentals to revisit, you know, that is very important. And this kind of platform perhaps trigger that if we really go through those rigor of the basics, like basics of listening, basics of watching, introspecting, being little silly and stupid, you know, and kind of humble down, you know, and go through, and this is what the good academics perhaps give you, those fundamentals, you know. Because today, if I have to teach a certain software or stuff, I don't think that is a global education, you know. And there is, I don't know, we have to debate, like there is, academics or education is something which kind of inculcate a utopia, ideology, like we as a mentors. I just want to bring little bit of anecdote of one of my mentor in NID, Siddharth Ghosh, is always kind of immortal. Yeah. He told me it's very important to be a mentor, not a tormentor, you know, and I think it's something what we look at, perhaps the global education is that, you know, that universality of things. And since being in the position, I just want to add, being a director of shaping up a new schools under the ministry, the national education policy will be a challenge and excitement, like where they're talking about, you know, what also is being embraced in kindergarten, like, you know, or K-12, like to revisit those, like, you know, what made those some of the best European schools, that these models, and how NID came into the being with the combination of Shantiniketan and Bauhaus, which is the 100 years of their exhibition happened in 1922. So many things, and that is perhaps the excitement. And then you take any medium, whether it's animation or gaming or, that's the outcome. That's the final outcome can be anything. So perhaps now we see, yes, if you say global education, I think we are empowered with the Internet of Things and all. But it's more important to know each other. I think this. Otherwise, what happened, many collaboration is being signed, it remain in the file, and it gathered dust. So,
Yeah, killed by bureaucracy.
so that's why I told you, I don't know why I'm in this panel, because I can't answer black and white.
Okay. I'm probably the pessimist in the house. Do forgive me. I think whether it's global or local, whatever the context of animation education is, I think academia needs to be extremely guarded against the mediocrity of lack of originality. And I think something that has been concerning me for a very long time now. So when I look at student work across schools here or abroad, I wish I was more, cheerful about the promises of the digital age. But I just find that there is always a lowest common denominator. So if you have a class of 30 and their first points of references are always the same, because they go on to Google image search and, that to me is a disease and a threat, and we need to be extremely guarded against that. And I'd like to invoke the late, great Dashrath Patel here. And Dashrath very often spoke about walking the land, and as a way of doing and being, or practicing design even. He meant this both literally and metaphorically. So walking the land in terms of course, the way to be a part of a lived experience is not to fly over it, or not to even train it or bus it, but you have to walk it, because you meet people, you encounter lives, spaces, experiences. The other part of the walking is intended to be on your feet, be rooted, be grounded. And what frightens me sometimes is that, I find it very perverse, like a child growing up in Dakshin Kannada is fluent in Japanese visual language. I find it very odd. The fact that that actually happens, and it is made possible by the great connected world. But I think a good way for global or local to make sense finally is to turn off the internet. That's my take. Yeah.
I would like to put an optimist spin on that.
Absolutely.
No, I totally agree with what Milindo is saying. Sometimes it hurts your heart when the first thing they do is open their laptop and go and find references. And yes, I think looking at the world, inspiration is something that we have to kind of mind, because otherwise it gets lost. Yesterday, I sort of just glimpsed FIFA World Cup. It was half-time. The cameras on, everybody sort of, they're doing their things. 90% of the people were on their phones. You're at the FIFA World Cup, and I'm wondering, what is that grass made of? And everybody's just like on their phones. So I think it is something which is a bit of a trap. But I think the fact that you were talking about the internet allowing for collaboration and us looking and learning from, we should really look at as a positive, because now we can, the good and the bad of the pandemic, where everything kind of went online, but then there were people from other institutes who could come online for a master class or have collaborative sessions from across the globe, and then do experimental animation, sitting like worlds apart, and bring something new to the table from a new perspective, and I thought that was really exciting. Important. But yes, turning down this dial is also...
Okay, pessimist, optimist, I will be the neutral one, more adaptable, agile. The question is that whether we want to teach local or global program, my view will be, let's talk to the stakeholder. The students are the stakeholders. Whether they want to learn local or global, that is something we can define later. Okay, but at the same time, why don't we teach our culture or whatever we having? No, that local, make it global. Rather than something we define as a global and then we trying to adapt better, we do something local, which is more interesting, very grassrooted, as Milindo said, and then make it global. Yeah, so that is one thing, and as a student, they are the stakeholders. So they know better what they want to learn. So idea will be more of hybrid, agile, okay, and there's a lot of choice will be offered to them, so that let them set the career path, because this new generation is very quick in grasping certain thing, and they experiment a lot. What we studied it in a very structured way, okay, and we had a defined goal and all that. Now the trends and the way the technology is coming is changing, so they can't also having that mindset, I need to be trained, because everything is very catchy. So better let them experiment. There's nothing wrong in that, because sooner or later things will fall in a place and all that. So it should be the stakeholders, students should be considered first, rather than we as a teachers, we set up a curriculum. Better we get the feedback from them, and then let's, as an expert, we understand that how much percentage or maybe the component we need to take care as a local or global, and make such a way that it is agile for them, and they themselves is making their own curriculum and designing their career. So that's how I look at it.
Sure.
I think you make a great point. And one thing I've seen with students, at least in terms of the ones that come to Savannah College of Art and Design, it's this, my work doesn't look like what I see on TV, and it's this fear of needing to edit yourself to fit what's already there. And so we find ourselves having to push, what are your ideas? What is your original thoughts, and what are the things that we can, the processes that we can put in place to help expose you to more, so that we're not seeing the same ideas all the time, the same things in everyone's portfolios. So I think it's a matter of, I think there's this fear that I've seen with some of the students of, what am I going to be able to do after this, and embracing what is already in them from their, if they're coming from another country, from wherever they're coming from, and putting that into their work, and then it becoming global. That is what's going to make them stand out. That we want that unique voice. I've found myself encouraging students that you are going to be reached out to. Your career is going to be based on what you bring, what's in you already. So how can we define that? I can teach you the skill sets, I can teach you the program, I can teach you those things, but we're not looking for cookie cutter. We want you to be able to execute the work well, but we need more voices. Where the way the industry is going, we need more content. We need refreshing new ideas. And so I think it is more of, where are the students? How can we take those local ideas, make them global, and really working with the students of, okay, how can I draw out those things that are already in you, that's already from your personal experiences, and then give you the platform and the tools so that it can reach others.
Sekhar?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, that throughout looking back in this journey, that there's not a problem with students. I mean, when we were also students, what we lack and look for, very few favorite teachers. So it is a problem of mentors. I think end of the day, we all were playful in our own way, so whatever technology available that time, and we try to, and that's basically the human instinct. It's always we push and find out. So maybe we have to ask that shall we be ritualistic and say celebrate one day of cleanliness drive, or see what made Japanese clean the stadium? What made Japan as a Japan? And not to copy on surface level. And I agree with Milindo that there has to be a little melancholic approach about saying, end of the day, it's a one world, it's a planet, and I see that what is concerning more and more that what we mean by global, what is mean by global? What will be the role, whether we run on the placement data, or whether we give some values, patience, observations, to be bored. Sometimes it's very important to be bored. They're saying, hey, you chose to come here in this school, get bored. So, yeah. So mentors are the crisis. Every institute, I think they're looking for good mentors.
Yeah, which brings me to the next question. I mean, I think you brought up a great point around mentors. Like, if I had to ask each one of you, if you were to, either pick one pertinent quality or a sentence that to you encapsulates a good mentor for a student, what would that be? Sure. Put you in the spot.
Yes, I just got placed on the spot. A good mentor. I think of compassion. I've noticed that the ones that have been my mentors and those that I do mentor, it's more than just, you have to really take the time to get to know that person and what they need in that season of their life and what's going to take them to the next step. Because I think us as artists and as creatives, we can be so tough on ourselves, so critical on ourselves. And I think I've seen a lot of comparison. Well, I'm not where this person is. I don't work the way this person is. And so when you have a mentor, I need someone that's going to give me guidance specifically for who I am and where I'm trying to go next. So when I am mentoring students, I take a lot of time to look at where they are, where have they come from, what is their situation, and where is the next thing that's best for them to feel fulfilled and complete in their journey, and knowing that it's going to be different for each person. So I think there's that level of compassion that's needed, because I've interacted sometimes with students where they're afraid of being judged, or afraid of, what others are going to be thinking. So there's a level of compassion of, I understand, and now I'm here to step in and help you to the next stage.
Yeah, so for me, no, my mentor, I will prefer someone who be present for my idea, understand my idea well, and help me to make mistake also, because sometimes the mentor also want you to define your own path, okay, not get just restricted with one way of doing it. So someone who understand, like rightly she said, like your skill, what are you looking for, what is your idea, and how do you want to grow with this, okay. So a mentor, someone who help me with that, understand that, and give me that freedom and that flexibility, and able to listen that this is what I want to do, okay, how we can collaborate, okay, rather than showing a specific direction. Let's open a more direction and let's experiment and see how it works. So that's something no, the mentor as well as the student both learn together. That's how.
It's a tricky question. Our mentors are sitting right here. I think, we'll wait for Sniggy to come back. I don't think I'm sitting with like the big heavyweights over here. I think the only way that I knew how to be a teacher is looking at the teachers who were really good to me. So I think helping a student understand that they have value from where they come from. Where they come from has value. The lives that they lead have value. Their experiences have value, and they can bring that to their work. And they're all unique is something that is important, because otherwise they're just like kind of trying to be like somebody. And then you have I think the M word is a bad word. We can't say manga, but yeah, we have so many influences coming in, and they're just kind of looking ahead rather than thinking, where I'm coming from, my language, my, what I'm doing, the kind of ideas I'm thinking are actually worth something, and helping them see that in themselves, I think, is important.
Yeah. What makes a good mentor? A fairly simple answer. I think a good mentor is someone who can instigate original work and also instigate excellence. And finally, it has to be where the student is able to produce work which not only stands up to scrutiny, but also connects and makes life better, if that makes sense, in a design sense, I suppose.
Right.
So that's pretty much it, I guess, from me.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel that, mentor is like a senior student working with junior batch of students, and who also practice, who also make mistakes and tell them it's trial and error. And say it's not a product, it's a process. And also, I mean, I think it's a kind of concept of home you create end of the day, and that is no matter whatever it is, like even even whatever technology comes, even there's an AI-driven institute, so human connect will always remain, and that is the role of mentor perhaps, to connect between, like play as a hyphen, role of an hyphen, and certain ways. All these things will be connected, everything is repeated, and yeah, so I see always myself as a senior student, so.
I think really great answers there, and like as everybody said that, I think collaboration, opening up your mind, like just letting you define and find your own path and your originality, I think it's fairly key. I do have one question to ask, which may be a touch controversial because there are some legacy institutes, there are some new institutes. With legacy institutes like SCAD, like NID, there obviously also comes a certain level of pressure of keeping up to a certain kind of image. And like with a newer institute, you can perhaps, like you said, learn to make mistakes, learn on the go, and go ahead. How do you guys, because now we're talking about the business of education, not just education. So how do you guys, as custodians of academia, fight against or perhaps hold off, if at all, the, the demonic powers of the business of education, if I may call it that?
Yeah, I think I just finish it fast because, right now my role, you can see I'm sitting on an electric chair, being a director of a national institute. Yes, we are the second one, and we're the late child because 50 years of legacy of NID Ahmedabad which comes, and it creates a heavy pressure. So every student who comes just want to be NIDian from the very first day. Yeah. So, and of course there's a angle of on the other hand, what comes with the whole global recession and economic crisis and this and that, there is definitely a pressure of becoming self-sustained. Like, there is a pressure of that all new NIDs has to be earning their 40% bread, so. Right. So definitely that pressure is there. So it is always nothing is so ideal. Yeah, and that is why I feel that one has to keep another side alive, like and maybe, I don't know, I really don't know. I mean, it goes through, and many a times, many civilizations gone through challenges, conflict, all these things. So there is no answer again. We have to face it. We have to go ahead, so. But the pressure comes because students want very ready-made result. That, I'm in NID, I will get result, I'll get big package theory kind of thing, so yeah.
I was giving you water. I'm not sure that the angry hordes are sort of the businesses on the other side. I think the angry hordes when you're in college are the parents who have all these expectations, saying that, because it's hard as a student. I don't think my parents understood what I was doing in an art school or what I was going to do after that. And I think it's the same right now. So like he said, I think there is an expectation that you will go through the pipeline and you will come up and then eventually you'll get a corporate job and that's when you've made it. And I think to break that and to kind of still stay true to the idea of having the freedom to play and discover is I think what we need to hold on to. And I think we do kind of do a good job in that, and then they just sort of struggle. I think lots of learning about this experience comes in retrospect, where you do kind of come in thinking something else is going to happen. It's going to be a sort of like a production line you are going to go through and then go out and make money. And but then it's a sort of a journey of self-discovery when you come out, and then you kind of look back and then you understand the value that you got from this kind of education.
I think there's definitely a standard that SCAD has and an expectation, not only from students that come, but then also just the reputation of the school. And so one thing I think is good is that we're always trying something new. We're always restructuring. So we just restructured the schools, and we're always collaborating on how can we do this better in terms of we're looking at what are students saying, how are students behaving, not only what are they producing, but we're even thinking about what are the conversations they're having in class, what are the things they're coming to us about. So we're really listening to the students, but we're also looking at what are the things that are needed in the industry. So there is a little bit of give and take, but I like to say we're always looking at, okay, how can we change? You know, what are the things that need to be changed, but still meeting the standard of, you know, when students come to SCAD, they're looking for that career, that job. That the tagline is School for Creative Careers. So it's still, okay, we have this standard, but okay, what are the things that we need to change that will help students meet that are going to meet the students' expectations? And we're very quick to respond to what are the things that come up during the school year, and then changing those things. So I think it's just constantly, you know, revamping and looking at, okay, what's working, what's not working, how do we need to change things? But then also, I think we're not only looking at faculty, but the entire school, all the facilities, everyone that's a part of the school that incorporates the student experience. Because it's not just them, you know, interacting with the faculty, but what are the facilities looking like? You know, what is their experience on campus, you know? And how can we all work together in order to increase the, I guess, experience of the students while they're on campus? So it's addressing multiple areas and, you know, everyone giving feedback and then making adjustments as necessary. So.
Sure. I think like adaptive and agility, like the two key words in education, I would think. So I think you guys all brought up the point of collaboration and like shifting gears. And, you know, the last 2 years have really seen us all shift gears in like every profession, every track. We've all had to kind of shift to like a whole new virtual ecosystem during the pandemic. So yeah, just wanted to understand how was that for you guys across your respective schools? How did that experience sort of translate in the moment, and what are the learnings or what are things that evolved during that time that can perhaps be taken forward as, you know, tenets of the new education, if at all?
Oh.
You've been put in the spot, Milindo.
Okay. Online education. Sorry, online education is what you were speaking about, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh boy. Where do we start? Animation and design, to my mind, cannot be taught and learned online. We found ourselves in a situation where we had to keep the academic wheels turning, and that, you know, logging into webcams was the only way to go about it. We still, I think, in that range of post-trauma from that. So, simply put, I think one thing that opened up clearly is the possibility of global conversations. I think that's fantastic. Flying in resources from across the globe to your school is such an expensive proposition always. But the fact that you can actually have connect students to experts from around the world, I think that's a fabulous takeaway. I think it made us very consciously realize that that's a distinct possibility. The flip side is that students sometimes raise their hands and ask, can we go online? You know, and then you're left with, you know, scratching your head, what did we do? I would say that the promises of global conversations and collaborations, I think that's fantastic. The medium makes it possible, although I said turn off the internet, but probably switch it on for that. Yeah. And I think the only way to go again is to be getting your hands dirty, be in studios, nudge each other, look over each other's shoulders. That's the only way to learn finally. And the webcam is not the way forward, according to me, Adam.
Can I add something? I agree with the question of, so when the pandemic hit on our side, we had to push the school quarter back in order to transition to being online, and there was a lot of fear and panic. and the students, but we went completely online. And I do think, and I agree, that animation should be taught in person. And I think there's nothing that competes with getting up and actually acting things out and, speaking with your colleagues, face to face, or your classmates. And, but some of the positive things were a lot of the industry, at least in America, was already, you could work remotely, for studios. And so there was a way in terms of, okay, the animation industry and wasn't really shaken too much, and students are now getting to experience where, sometimes they're working for a studio remotely, virtually. But at the same time, we're learning we're forgetting the interpersonal skills and how to actually have a conversation with someone and how to connect with people face to face. And now we're back in the classroom, and we want students in the hallway, students coming to the office, students working collaboratively together. But then we have those questions of, is this session recorded? Can I watch the class online? And we're like, no, come to class, No, we're not recording anymore. You need to be in the classroom. Just because animation is a collaborative experience. You need to be there next to the person on your team. And so I do think that virtually you lose that, you lose that connectivity, and that also will show up in your work, as well. And so because we learn from each other, we, take ideas from one another. So I do think there's a positive, respect to it, just because we were able to continue teaching, and in some ways, parts of the industry are doing this, but I think we learned that when students came back into the class, they didn't know how to have a conversation with people. They didn't know how to present. It was just a lot of awkwardness, and people staying on their phones, and wanting to stay on the computer with their cameras turned off, So it's it's kind of, there are positives and there are some drawbacks, but I do definitely think it's something that needs to be in person, since it is such a collaborative field.
Are there any students here really sitting? Students, would you raise your hands? Oh, hello there. Sorry. Public apology, but I do think, I think what Milindo was saying about how art and design can't be taught online. If we look back at our time as students in NID and things like that, I wouldn't have met you. I never had a class with Binoj at all, and worked on so many films. We have never met him, and the conversations that we had with Sekhar in, the cafeteria outside behind the metal workshop, that would have never happened. And it's not about seeing your teacher's face in ultra close up, and I think it is kind of brought into perspective what we think is education that needs to happen. He put it really nicely that the wheels of the curriculum had to keep turning. There were people who were paying the fees. The parents were sitting right next to them and watching, I'm sure, what is this person talking about? But I think it was terrible. It was a terrible thing. And now when they've come back, I think we are not really taking into account how it has affected them. There's a very small slice of people in class, even in person, who would kind of be the proactive ones. But I think our job is to kind of poke the ones at the back. And to make sure that they are not falling between the cracks. And for them, it was a nightmare. And now when they come back, they can't sit in a class with 20 people. They feel a social anxiety just kind of hanging out. They don't want to talk to their seniors. And it's just so stressful. So we have a pandemic batch, which is affected, I think, across, I think, no matter which school it is or which this thing. I don't think education is about, especially design education or an art school, is about sitting and learning curriculum. It's not a textbook, so I think that was really, really hard.
Take this.
No, I agree with you. I think most of the learning from relay of mics. Hi. No, I do agree with you. I think even in the professional field, what the things that you're talking about, the softer skills as we speak of, which are your interpersonal skills, which you kind of learn on the go, the things that you imbibe just by watching other people. I think there's definitely like a loss of that. Like I think we as professionals also, when we're coming across more people, I think there's something that we definitely sense. But yeah, like I think there is still some merit to the fact that it has opened a lot of doors of possibilities which otherwise kind of remained, you know, like not feasible, not accessible. Just the amount of access this is given everybody is also, in a sense, like as much as, I mean, Milindo, I'm putting forward like an absolute counterpoint here, but I think the internet is also a fairly democratic medium, I would say, maybe, like a little tentatively. It does open out the possibility for like a lot of people which wouldn't have it otherwise, right?
I'll see you outside.
Done.
Yeah, I just want to add on this collaboration note because collaboration definitely is always there and it is important. Like if I recall that whole deal of being in animation department in Ahmedabad, where I also studied once upon a time, and then coming back there as a faculty and then coordinating the department, then I feel that, you know, like what the conversations, not only from NID, also before and after, I love talking and listening to people, like, you know, all kind. And I feel that animation is one technique also, you know, that where you have to animate. But content is always the king or queen or whatever we can say, that content. Right. And it means if we really don't know the story, I mean, what you'll do with animation? And that is why I think collaboration is needed. And that is what I feel that, you know, Chitragatha born. The Chitragatha, what I feel that when NID also jump into getting grades, and everybody wants to get A+, nobody wants to be degraded, because D means fail and all these things. So, and then you see slowly it's multiplication and all these things. So who am I to control that? Who am I? I'm no one. But at least we can see that how you can use the power you got at that moment of time. And if you see the Chitragatha, perhaps I can take little credit that you people dared to do this edition here. You know, I'm very happy to see that, you know, most important, yes, not only animation education or design education, any education. Imagine medical practice. I mean, in this job, when Corona struck there and the whole world got crippled, we signed a collaboration with a medical institute, AIMS Mangalgiri. And we started working with doctors.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they're saying that how online you can take the pulse. How you take the pulse, like it's pulse. How, on digitally, how you'll take, how online you'll take. You have to come physically and no. like textile students, they couldn't sustain. We had to bring a different kind of courses online. Yeah, ceramic, and eventually civil society, you know, like so. And collaboration helps us. You know, we sign a collaboration with Agricultural University to understand how, I mean, we see that it's not only, I mean, it's all people need to be empowered. And I think design is also something which empowering one. And education eventually also has to empower. You know, and soon, as I tell you that the way we see the world is kind of getting readjusted, the planet is getting readjusted. I'm sure our colleagues will be from anywhere of the world, which is already happening. So, one hand, it is very porous. It is kind of coming together, which is very good, very exciting. But I think it is somewhere we need to see, and that is why we need a little bit of responsible approach. You know, like it has a purpose, it has a function. That it is not a decorative art only. You know, so that, and then we have to also see that there is a tremendous pressure of being famous. So if we can keep it aside, maybe it will help the society and education to know all these things too. But collaboration is the key. I always feel collaboration is the key. Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about asking the next question to this panel, but this is definitely like a, you know, like something which is doing the buzz around like various conversation rooms. So in the age of tech and mechanization and machine learning and AI, how are you looking at changing the education landscape, if at all? I can already feel Milindo's stare, like sort of boring in one way.
So Milindo, you want to say the last word, or who wants to give a very optimistic? Yeah.
Well, AI is already there now. No, there is no way we say no to it, but no, the way it is a positive way. If we look at that, how we can use it, no, creating better and better quality design and the content. That's what we can look at it. As an institute perspective, definitely this will be a part of curriculum. But as a teacher, we would be always emphasize that to you are as a human, be a human, okay? And let not to be slave of AI or this machine learning. Let's make them slave, okay? And define till where we want to go, okay? A few weeks ago, I just came across one website which called My Heritage Family Tree, and you put your picture and it animate, and it's so convincing. So they just did the facial part. I'm sure in coming days your photograph, your family trip, you are going to see in a more in animated way. So things are there, people are experimenting. We should be also open to that, but we want to teach our students that you primarily born as a human, be human, and because machine learning or AI will teach you certain probabilities, but they don't know what is good or bad. But we as a human, there is a lot of emotion. We understand what is good, who is my audience, and what I need to work out. So we need to put a control on that. We will be the supervisor for the supervisor for that, and but definitely part of a curriculum. We need to adapt and take the best of use of it, because all this technology comes with good and bad. Yeah. So the good part, if we focus, we will never lose on the bad part. Yeah.
I think the key word that was said, be human, be a human. I can't speak to if it's going to be added to curriculum at this point. I have seen students making use of it in the iteration stage of creating their work in terms of these softwares. They'll create these very unique one-time kind of images that you can put together, and their students are trying to figure out how to use these in their projects. But I can't say that us as a school, in terms of the curriculum, this is something that we're speaking about right at this moment. Going back to be a human, so we're still thinking about what are your innate ideas and things that make you unique that you're putting into your work. So, but outside of that, I can't really speak to, are we changing something in the curriculum to
No, for sure.
that?
Yeah.
I think this is tricky in academia, not looking at it from an industry point of view right now. And I think we're always fearful of things we don't understand or we don't know. So I think right now, I think maybe we're in that stage where the knee-jerk reaction to this is almost insulting. How dare it? How can you do that in a second? I remember I first met AI. I came on, there was a brainstorming session in class. We had given them an abstract word, I think like emerging hope or something, to kind of visualize and find metaphors. So everybody's doing some brainstorming. One bunch of boys are sitting in the corner. I go around, doing my rounds, and I say, what have you done? They've done nothing, and they're very happy. And they show me the screen, and they're like, look, we can just do this. We can put in a word, and then there was some generative moving stuff happening there. And I, of course, came down on them. And I'm like, what is the use of your brain? And I just kind of like lost it. But then I think it's interesting because it's certainly a double-edged thing. But I think using it as an inspiration, I think that I'm going to be excited to see how creative people use it and do something with it, because it's not, I don't think it's the end. You can't just kind of type something and then, I'm sure there's going to be a market for very quick, generic stuff. But I think it'll be interesting to see how creative people can use this new technology and really push it. And I think that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
I see one good thing about it, like it will break the barrier of the language. Like, perhaps it'll open up to the larger world to understand each other, because the first thought comes from the way I grew up and make the noise or sound, which is either Bengali or Assamese or whatever, dialects or Japanese but the moment we translate into a language which we try to master, which is not definitely natural sound you make, so I think that is definitely the good side of it, and that will express my raw idea into my own language, which can be translated, provided, of course, there will be error, and you might get a slap back because if AI speak a wrong translation, you really don't know. So it's keep on evolving, and we really don't know because you never know, there may be internet holocaust also. So
That's a very
now to Milindo.
scary
I just
reality.
give a clue to this. Yeah.
All right. The rise of the machines is inevitable, yeah? I mean, it feels like that. A lot of roles, responsibilities, jobs will be offloaded from human capacities. And, well, that's an all right thing, I suppose. But what the machine can never really take over is this beautiful infinite human capacity to imagine. And that, to my mind, is not machinable, and it shouldn't be. And we'll have Terminator 3 or 4 on the way if that happens. But this capacity to imagine, to invent, to think, to create beautiful things, it's a unique human gift, and it's such a blessing. And I'm not sure why we would like to outsource that to the machines. But having said that, to my mind, the best of animation is both strange and sublime at the same time. And I keep going back to the work of animators, like a personal hero of mine is Jan Swankmaia and the likes of Sylvain Chomet. And I keep going back to that because I relive experiences, I relive memories, and as a narrative form, I can't imagine machines creating work like that, which speaks not only to the local culture there, but also to large numbers of people on the planet. And I think that's something to be celebrated. And much as I hate machines, I would say that they're useful when they're useful, but they shouldn't be allowed to take over what is uniquely and very significantly human.
Yeah, like run the machines, don't let the machines run you. Yeah.
Rise of the humans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, after this I'll shut my mouth. I just want to tell you that one thing, because the access what we are getting as a director of all the NIDs, there are 4 new NIDs, National Institute of Design, and along with the big elephant in Ahmedabad. Now what is happening for us, we are also understanding that there is serious intention to listen to. So what I'm trying to tell you, listen to by the bureaucrats and the policymakers and all these things. So it's not all bad. I think that is where we can take this dialogue further. What generally happens, it's kind of fizzle out. It's really, I mean, you see, since we are in the jungle of information, we really don't take this very delicate community of animators or storytellers, and as I say, Sylvain Chomet you mentioned, and that is something, I mean, I was recalling interacting with him in certain festivals and saying that his tribute is to Jacques Tati and the lost French culture, and that is being documented, and it will stay forever, at least for future. So that is something yet to happen, I believe that, because we also have tremendous pressure of Terminator, and that is, I think maybe we should take this dialogue forward.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it gives us advantage to take this forward to the policymakers, and they're talking about preserving our stories, and how we'll do it. Yeah.
No, for sure. Like the idea of the dialogue was to kind of like shape and talk about what, what education should look like, what does it look like, and what does it entail, and probably take this, like you said, like the intent is to take the conversation forward and create real impact. So for sure. I think there is a slight press of time, so I'll quickly round up with the last few questions. do I randomly shout out names or will you guys just take a go at whichever? Okay, super. So good school is, yeah. Questions from the audience. So a good design school is also about building like a good network or a community which goes beyond the classroom. How would you guys, what do you guys think about that? How are you guys fostering that in your own individual school capacities? Anyone?
Yeah. Like back there in this school, you know that it is somewhere quite another world because, and we are quite a bit of, I mean, I call it a rural campus. I mean, we got 50-acre land, and then out of that 20 acre is the building which is getting ready, and a lot of fresh air. I mean, we are going to sell. What we are talking about, first 2 years will be rigorous foundation, and last 2 years will be open to collaborate. We are already collaborating with Samsung Research Institute in Bangalore. The students in third and fourth year are already working on different areas and developing. Design is eventually what we talk about is the idea, the content, you know. So, and then we are also open to collaborations with, and advantage of me being an alumni from NIT, I mean, we are getting connected. And then we see that, you know, how we eventually get into if Air India goes back, return of the prodigals onto the family, and I think there is nothing called public or private. Maybe we have to see like-minded collaborations. So that is what we are pushing the curriculum. You know, for 2 years will be very rigorous age-old practice of the past, and 2 years will be open to collaborate, you know, like.
I think one thing that we talk about at SCAD is that it's very much, all the professors have worked professionally in the industry. So we are very heavy into networking and bringing the companies to the school. So we have courses like SCAD Pro where students are working on actual projects with companies and solving actual problems that they have, you know, so collaborating with, you know, Adult Swim and making, you know, animations that are going to premiere, you know, within the next month or so. And our career fairs are, us faculty personally will bring in our colleagues from the industry, you know, to connect with the students. So we talk very heavily about the networking and about the community of people that you're around, and bringing in those industry leaders that want to have one-on-ones with the students. And so we speak very heavily about everyone in the classroom is going to be your connection once you get out of the classroom. So we push this culture of animation, at least I can speak to, in America, it's a very small family. You know, you're 1 degree of separation from someone who's a director somewhere else. And so we're putting a lot of effort into bringing in these companies that want our students, but also the places that our students want to be as well. So the networking is a huge part of how we place our students and why some of the students come to SCAD. So.
Well, at MIT Institute of Design, we are going with choice-based curriculum. So a student will have major in animation, minor in furniture design. So we are going to be more choice-based course. In the third year undergraduate, we have pools of electives which can be done by industry expert as well as the faculty from from entire university. So one way is doing that collaboration, which will bring many of us together to work on broader aspects of work which you can do. At the same time, we have our alumni group, and we were talking about during pandemic, what are the things which you made up. So one thing we have been very fortunate that at MIT Institute of Design, all the alumni came together to make a platform where they interact with our ongoing students. So we started a platform called Khidki, and it was, to me, it's a window and open to interact with the alumni And we have a lot of workshop, the jury, which is also there, which is mandatory in the third year, second year of masters. External expert need to be there. And we started this year Folio, where the portfolios being reviewed by the industry experts. So they are on the campus and look at the portfolios and build up those networking and everything. So whatever the best way of collaboration and networking we can bring, we are putting that as a priority. And we are thankful to our alumni who are coming forward with all the support, and the management is also helping us to come up with all this new initiative. So that's one way we are looking forward for that.
I think if I'm talking about Srishti, it's always been interdisciplinary from the beginning. And I think the idea of network starts when you start breaking that silo of, yes, I'm only going to do animation because I'm an animator. I think right now we have a film which has been selected at AIG that the students have made, and I think the students are across disciplines. They're not necessarily animation students, which I'm really happy about. But yes, I think interdisciplinary through the college and the networks that you build by this kind of system where they choose their own curriculum, but also I think the network with the community is something that happens very strongly at Srishti. There is a Bangalore Design Week happening where they're working with multiple players. There are artists which come in during interim and then they have an artist in residence where the students work with them. So I think being connected is really important, and looking beyond what we are meant to do, I think that is important to kind of foster.
So in the Whistling Woods Institute, we have initiated dialogues with schools in Europe and in the UK. So there's the University of Greenwich. We have what is called a workshop arrangement. So we conduct workshops for them, for their students, and they conduct workshops for our students. And we also have a in-person workshop exchange, if you will, from with a school in Paris. The visual design school, and so a batch of our students go there for 2 weeks, and their students also come over to us for 2 weeks. So we are very open to cross-cultural exchanges, and I think that's always very enriching. And we hope to see some wonderful work. We try and put European students and our students together and see what comes of it, and I think there are brilliant opportunities there to create something new.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. While I did have more questions, I think as Milindo and I kind of battle it out about the internet, we can take the discussion outside and discuss more of these. I'd quickly like to open the stage to anybody else who would like to ask any questions to the panel. Anybody in the audience? Yes? No?
Good afternoon, all. I have a very basic question as a young person. As we are seeing an economic crisis falling upon us globally, how do you see the work and how do you see the animators going ahead with the work? Given that we are not corporate people, but yet there has to be work where we can, what do we expect from the industry? Are we going to have work or not? Like, basically.
I think animation has no job, but that's why most of the animators are going to whatever available. Most, a chunk, not only animators, like all road leads to what is popular at that moment of time. I feel that if you just think of earning bread, not butter, everybody survive in a way. That's also our animal instinct, So, and education never gives that solution. Education gives you a kind of to dream and get frustrated when you go out. Then you say that your teachers didn't teach you anything. For a couple of years you get frustrated, and then you come back as a mentor. That's how I think I practiced, and it worked. I see a couple of them around, and it's like a story of phantom.
I was in the flight and I saw an in-flight magazine about a career counselor, and she was giving advice to parents, and she said parents must be aware of what is happening in the industry in the next 5 to 10 years, and sort of push them in the direction of the emerging trend of things that we're going to, the stuff that is going to make money in the future. I totally agree with Sekhar on this, but don't worry. Animation will never go out of style. When there was pandemic happening and people couldn't go out and shoot, we would animate. So don't worry about it. And animation can do something that neither print media, I hope graphic designer not here, can do. And it's not limited by the real world like filmmaking. So I don't think it's ever going to die. You'll always find a job. And if you can't find a job, there's Starbucks. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so precisely, I never said it's not that bleak picture. Practice, but you join a Starbucks, So that is what, I was supposed to be animation director, now I'm a director. So I'm not animating, but I'm doodling in the meeting, So can't help, So it was never been a bleak picture.
That's funny. I agree a lot of what was said. Animation isn't going anywhere. I think it's going back to why do you want to do this? And it's like you're a storyteller and you're using animation. And so we're always going to need story. And if anything, we just need more stories, more ideas, there's going to be more that is needed. And one thing I started talking to students about is living from the why as opposed to your what. So sometimes we get very hung up on, I need that animation job. I need this title. But you're still an animator or a character designer, regardless if you have that title in an industry position. And so maybe right now in this season, you are working or developing on something else, but that doesn't mean that you're no longer an artist, no longer an animator. So one thing I do try to push is that let's not put all of your identity in that title if you're working in that position, and thinking about if you're living from your why of what message are you trying to convey. Animation is one of those mediums that you're using to get that out. But in the meantime, maybe you're working at Starbucks, you're writing very encouraging notes on, people's cups. Or sometimes you may go into teaching, you may go into writing books. It may be these different things that still are going to give you some fulfillment until you get that job, until that position happens. So I would say don't get so hung up on, I don't have that actual job position with this salary quite yet. It's just, you're still that artist, you're still that animator, and something will come along, so.
Can I go on? Hi, everybody. Well done on those, comments and, words of wisdom. So I wanted to ask a question. So I represent industry, and I know you guys are more educators and in the academic space. So I wanted to ask about what do you do in terms of making your candidates industry ready? This is a question that has come up in South Africa, for example, where I'm from, where students are super talented, they're brilliant, they know what to do, but the problem or the disjoint comes where they're not ready for work, and some of the things that you've mentioned about COVID, the anxiety and all of that. So what do you do in your curriculums or curriculi to make sure that they are industry ready and they've got the EQ and all of that? Thank you.
I can answer that for SCAD. It's very much driven towards being industry ready. So specifically in the curriculum, their senior year, they have something called capstones. And it's made to mimic an actual production. So there's a director, and you have to recruit people to your team. So you're building a production team, and then there are asset artists. You have to get hired onto a film, and you're actually filling out what's called a time card, which is kind of like your grade. And so these things are meant to mimic, okay, if you can't get on a film, that means maybe you need to expand your skill set. Because in the industry, sometimes, films are or shows in a particular part in the pipeline, and they don't need an animator right now. They need a storyboard artist, or they need a character designer. So we're teaching those students of, okay, right now you need to get this sort of grade to pass. So maybe you need to expand your skill set because these films are in pre-production right now, or they're in production or post-production. So how do you expand that? We're teaching them the different roles in the industry, what is the difference between a producer and a project manager, you know, and how do you properly communicate and delegate work for the people on your team so that when you are finished with your film at the end, you can say, I've directed a team of 6, 7, 8, you know, artists, or, you know, if you want to get hired as a production assistant, you can specifically target films that need a production assistant role, and you can start learning how to do that on an actual film. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the industry partners that come in where you're working on an actual live projects where you're learning how to pitch an idea, you're learning how to go about getting notes with an actual client. And so those are some of the things that we're doing, but it's very heavy towards what are you going to actually experience in the industry when there's a hiatus, you know, when we kind of push it to the point of, okay, if you're having a hard time getting on a film now, you know, and you're working for free, you know, what is that going to look like when you're trying to actually get into the industry, you know, and you're trying to get a paid job? So it's kind of those things of, okay, how do you need to adjust how you're working so that you do have an employable skill on an actual project?
Thank you.
Okay, in our curriculum, we have a concept called internship, where summer internship, the student goes to industry for 2 months in the third year, in the third year. And there is a final thesis industry project, where they again, work with industry and the projects. Apart from that, being a university, we have an incubation center, where they bring industry projects and students and the external mentors, faculty mentors work together and deliver to the content or maybe the deliverable to the client. So that is one thing, but as you said, industry ready, at MIT, now we have seen there are students who are already doing freelance. So they are industry ready, but not classroom ready. So our effort is to make them classroom ready. So that is where the effort going on.
I think this is tricky. I'm going to answer one bit for you and then maybe sort of the students who are sitting there thinking industry ready and getting stressed as well. In Srishti, we have two kinds of program. We have a 4-year undergrad program, which is a BFA, which is more focused on self-expression. But we do have a BWalk program, which is a Bachelor of Vocation, which is about media production. And we're looking at collaborating with industries. They go for internships. And they are learning the fundamentals, like Sekhar also kind of brought out. Whether the BWalk program is more kind of catered towards VFX and 3D and the learning the fundamentals there. The BFA program is the fundamentals of 2D and experimental thinking, writing and stuff like that. But I'm not sure how exactly, the industry is changing and there isn't one kind of industry. So I would say making sure that the student is confident in the fundamentals that they have and is able to say, I don't know, and is willing to learn and say, I'll figure it out. That I think is about being industry ready.
Yeah, for us, especially with this now new school I am there, since we are a public institute and it is not always necessarily, we are a little blessed with a ministry fund to build the institute, but at the same time, our main objective is also to locally connect. And not necessarily as a public institute can also be industry ready because, as Bhavna rightly said, that it's kind of keep on changing, keep on changing. Some job died, some new job come. So how many courses you will keep on changing? How many new machines you will get? And public institute can afford to do that always. So fundamental we give more emphasis on, fundamental and fundamental. And then imagine I'm in a place which is kind of, I don't think Google Map even can identify. And there we have to connect the local people and build a new industry. Or even not even industry, look at, because that's completely an agricultural belt. So how craft and other education can connect in design, and then those stories can come up for the global world. Maybe new episodes will come up, new market will emerge. So these are the fundamentals I think we just give emphasis on. A little bit of philosophical bullshit we give. And, so I think, so it can't be so homogeneous all across. So, and problem of public institute, it failed to attract many people because we don't have good pay package. We give bread, not the butter. So it can't be universal answer, I guess, but fundamental, and then it's a choice, one can find a way out, so. Milindo, anything? No, okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for taking out the time. Thank you for your extremely insightful answers. We'll continue more of the conversation. I'm happy to say that they're all here for the entire duration of the festival, and accessible. So those of you who are kind of shy to raise your voice but would like to, go out and interact, please do so. And finally, on behalf of Team AGI, we would just like to present like a token of thanks to everybody on the panel.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You can switch off these lights, maybe. I think it'll be really nice.
Yeah.
You can, if you want to give the impact. So nice. Yeah. Oh, you can give me, no problem. You can extend. Yeah.
Quickly.
Thank you, Pratik and Signa and Ritu and the entire team. So it's fantastic.